These are the points to remember. First, dry materials don't compost, so keep the mix moist. Second, greens smell bad fast, so mix them with browns as soon as possible. Third, browns store well, so keep a supply handy. Fourth, make sure there are paths for air in the mix. If the microbes are provided with a good food mix, air and water, some finished compost will be available in about 3 months of warm weather. Piles like this, made inside a plastic bin, are often added to for a year and then disassembled. The mature compost is harvested, and the undecomposed material is added to the new pile. You may run into a number of signs of trouble during composting. Some of the signs to watch for that can be easily fixed are: if the pile is smelly, turn it and add some browns and soil to the mix. If the pile is cold and moist and materials are not completely composted, mix in some greens. Similarly, if the pile is cold and dry and materials are not completely composted, add water and stir. If the pile is too wet, turn and add more materials, especially browns. Compost piles are dormant in the winter months, but the microbes become active again in the spring. Food scraps may be added directly to the pile throughout the winter, or can be stored outdoors in bags or pails and added in more organized fashion in the spring. Compost can be made in open piles or bins. Piles are a good choice if there's a large volume of materials, or if space is not an issue. Piles can be covered with plastic sheeting or a tarp to keep the surface layer from drying out. Compost bins come in many styles, so it's worth putting some thought into the type of bin that will best suit your needs. Accessibility is important. The easier it is to put in materials, stir them, and remove finished compost, the more that you are going to enjoy composting. The best bin design balances the need to let air in without letting moisture out. Dry materials do not compost, and things can dry out very quickly on the prairies in the summertime. Consider the amount of materials you have available to compost. This will determine the size of bin you need. Many people have no problem at all with rodents, but they are worth thinking about when you're choosing a bin. What is considered affordable and attractive varies greatly from person to person. Here are some examples of different bin types. Single-unit black plastic bins are available from most garden supply stores. Their design allows for easy addition of materials and aeration without too much moisture loss. It is best suited for people with small volumes of compost. The bin has a sliding section at the bottom for removing completed compost. However, this does not always work well. The easiest way to remove compost from this type of bin is to pull the bin up off the pile, set it up in a new location, then put all the uncomposted material back into the bin. A multiple unit bin with removable front panels is a good choice if you have lots of materials to compost. It can be constructed on site with new or salvaged wood, but preserved wood should not be used. This style of bin allows you to turn compost from one section to another, with the third section being used to store leaves or straw. Some plants call for wire mesh to be used on the sides and back, but this allows too much drying in the prairies. Barrel composters are another type of compost bin. They are harder to build and more expensive to buy. Models that are designed with good drainage and internal baffles are very efficient units. These represent good choices for people with back problems or concerns about rodents. Rodents and other animals can pose problems for composters. Sometimes they are attracted by food, sometimes by the warmth. Following the suggestions about leaving out bones, meat, and fat, and adding soil to the mix greatly reduces the attractiveness of compost to animals. Mouse traps are an effective way to control mice if they're visiting your pile. Sturdy plastic bins with relatively small air holes are designed to minimize problems with rodents. Lining bins with hardware cloth, like the bin in the picture, and having a secure lid will keep out larger animals. Where you put a compost bin or pile in your yard is an important decision. The best place is one which is sunny in the spring and shaded in the fall. Deciduous trees are the likeliest source of this kind of seasonal shade. Open-bottom bins are usually placed directly on the soil, but the process will still work if there's concrete under the bin. Other things to consider when choosing where to put your bin are ease of access, aesthetics, and the possibility of occasional bad smells. Composting greatly reduces the volume of materials, so it's hard to make too much. The main method of using compost is to dig it into garden or flower bed topsoil. This will improve the soil structure and air and water holding capacity and fertility. It also gives a boost to the soil microorganism population. If you have enough, a 1 or 2 inch layer of compost can be dug into the garden annually. People with large gardening spaces have to use it more sparingly to enrich the soil for selected plants. Compost is sometimes added to the surface of the soil around plants that could use a fertility boost in the middle of a growing season. This technique, called side dressing, can also be used around perennials. Putting finished compost through a wire mesh screen gives a much finer product. The coarser material left over can be returned to the compost bin to continue decomposing. Screen compost can be used as part of a potting soil mix, or small amounts can be added to the surface of the soil of existing house plants. You can give your lawn a boost by raking 1/2 inch, 1 centimeter of screen compost into the grass. It is also good to do this after an aeration so the compost can fall into the holes where plugs have been removed. Compost tea is a useful, easily made substance. It is used to water transplanted plants and revive ailing ones. You can make a pailful by putting about 1 liter of compost in a mesh bag and letting it steep. Larger volumes can be made in barrels with burlap bags full of compost. The compost you've used to make the tea can be dug into the garden when you've finished. Composting on the prairies is a good idea. It helps to reduce the flow of household waste to our landfills and improves the quality of backyard soil. If you have questions or would like more information about any of the topics covered in this video, contact the Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council in Saskatoon at 306-931-3242 or email us at swrc@link.ca. You can also mail us at Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council, number 203, 115 2nd Avenue North, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, S7K 2B1. Thanks to Shell Canada for their financial assistance in the production of this video. Happy composting!
So as Annette said, I'm Stephanie. I'm a volunteer with the Saskatchewan Waste Reduction Council, but I also work for the City of Saskatoon. So I know you guys said that you wanted to do more community garden, larger scale composting. Are most people here for backyard composting, or is there more for larger scale composting? Maybe we could just get a feel.
We're both here for kind of both.
Both?
Home and community farms.
Okay, is everyone from Saskatoon? Okay. I think what I'll go through first is the video didn't really discuss the programs that the City of Saskatoon offers. So I think it's on this little pamphlet that I gave you. The City of Saskatoon has 2 compost depots. I don't know if everyone was aware of that, one on the east side, one on the west side. So they accept leaves and grass there, so that's an option for composting. If you don't want to do it in your backyard, you can haul it there and they'll accept it there. They just won't accept elm. And the video did mention that elm is an issue for composting. Here in Saskatoon, the only way to deal with it is take it to the landfill, unfortunately, because of Dutch elm disease. So that's the only approved facility for disposing of elm. So aside from the compost depot, the city also offers leaves and grass collection program. So in the spring, or right now I think they're all sold out, but near the fall of the year you can contact the city and get a green bin. drop off this bin, and you can, through the spring and summer, fill it with your leaves and grass, and a truck will come and pick it up, dump it at the compost depots. So it's a very, for $40 I think it is, a very economical way of getting rid of your outdoor compost. They won't accept indoor at this point. So did anyone have any questions? Oh, and also they also have rebate programs. So we're selling compost bins, I think, for $50 right now, and also rain barrels for $50, $60. You can just contact the city and sign up for one of those discounted bins. Or if you don't like the bins that we're selling, you can just go to Home Depot or find your own bin, and there's a form to fill out to get a $10 rebate for those bins. So that being said, is there any questions based on the video or what you want to do? Is there any vermicomposting? Anyone wants to do compost indoors with worms? Any questions about that?
Sure curious.
Sure curious? Vermicomposting is, it's a bin about this big with some holes in it, and there's special kind of worms called red wigglers, and they eat your composting material. So you just sort of dig a little hole in it, hole in the material, put your compost, and cover it back up, and they'll eat away at it. And they're castings, or they're worm poop. It's called castings, and that's excellent fertilizer you can add to your houseplants or outdoors as well. They're not native to Canada, these worms, so you have to purchase them. They're not the earthworms that you have in your garden. So there's some people in the city that sell them and sell the whole kit to get you going. And once the population gets too big, like you'll notice that they'll multiply in these bins. So you either have to split the bin, give it to someone else to start their own composting system, or harvest the castings and use that, or there's lots of things you can do. It goes into more detail in this pamphlet too, and there's a pamphlet back there if you're interested.
I've got worms.
Yeah, it's a good, I've done worm composting for 5 or 6 years, and it's perfect for 1 or 2 people in a household, a bin this big. If you have like a family, you'll probably need a couple of those bins, and so then space becomes an issue. I also noticed that fruit flies can become a problem, and so what I did with my bin is I put an old pillowcase in between the bin and the lid, and that seemed to prevent them from coming out or wanting to go in, so it just limited them. And again, you just want to cover your compost, same as an outdoor one, so to not attract fruit flies.
You mentioned in your